Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of this weekend's game against Chelsea. Going to be a tough one, isn't it? Well, first and foremost, let's just say, unfortunately for you guys, it is just me this week. For whatever reason, no Chelsea fan wanted to answer their direct messages on Twitter. So if you are a Chelsea fan and you're listening to this or watching this, give us a shout, because if we are in the Premier League next season, then I'd like to be able to do a pre-game show with you. So yeah, it is just me. But you know, fuck 'em, we don't need Chelsea fans, do we? You know, this is a Burnley podcast. We'll sit here and we'll talk about Burnley. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently just to make it flow a bit easier. I'm going to talk about the Leicester game. I'll go over that for a little bit, and then I'll go into the Chelsea game. But yeah, it is Chelsea this weekend. Chelsea are currently third in the Premier League off the top of my head. Again, I really should prepare these sort of things before I press the record button. But yes, of course, I've just double checked it. They are third in the Premier League on 50 points, no chance of winning the league title. They are currently 16 points behind Manchester City. And they are actually in a little bit of danger, not too much danger, but a little bit of danger of perhaps falling out of the top four. I don't think they will. Chelsea are third, like I said, on 50 points. They have played 2 games less than Manchester United, who are in fourth on 47 points. And 2 games less than West Ham also, who are 5th on 45 points. So they've got that bit of a cushion, really, to be fair. So you would suspect that they quite comfortably finish third and finish in those Champions League places. But yeah, obviously, let's go over some things then. I have already spoken about the Leicester game on the channel. But of course, that was immediately afterwards when things were still quite emotional. The emotion was still, evident, I think, in some of the things that I said. So let's just go over it a little bit. Yes, the performance was poor. Yes, we weren't good enough. And yes, we deserve to get beat. I think everyone is in agreement with that. The thing that annoys me a little bit is just the way that we just played into their hands. I feel a little bit, we let them sort of like press us quite easily without really moving the ball very quickly. Of course, if you want to beat a high press, you've got to move the ball quickly, got to get it out from the back. But we either moved it too slowly or just hoofed it upfield, and then we just became smothered. The ball came back at us every single time. And then we were already knackered after playing, 60 hours of football in the space of 12, 13 days, I think it was. And we just played right into their hands, because then they had Maddison and Vardy to bring off the bench into the starting 11. And when you're already tired and chasing shadows for 70 minutes or 75 minutes, whatever stage you brought Vardy and Maddison on, and when you bring someone with the pace of Vardy and, someone who can create chances like Maddison, then, yeah, it's going to be tough. And I think we got exactly what we deserve. But it wasn't the end of the world. It would have been nice to move out of the bottom 3. It would have been nice to move up to 15th. It would have felt a lot different, I feel, heading into this game against Chelsea if we were sat there in 15th. But unfortunately, we are still down in 18th. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just quickly share the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. Of course, if you're listening to this on the podcast and you want to see more of a visual sort of thing, then you can do by just going over to YouTube and watching the channels. Give us a subscribe while you're there. And then when these sort of shows come up, you'll be able to watch them as and when. And if you really want to, press the notify bell. I've realised recently there's a way to check how many people have you on notifications, and we currently have 77 people on notifications, which basically means every time we upload a video to YouTube, they get a notification through to their phone notify. So if you are one of them 77 people, thank you very much for pressing that notification bell. And if you are not, please head over to YouTube and press that notification bell now. But yeah, as you can see, if you are watching on YouTube, as I said, on your screen now, we are still in 18th place on 21 points, 2 points above Watford, who are in 19th, and 4 points above Norwich now, who are in bottom place in the Premier League. But of course, I'll just quickly, yeah, I am looking at the right column. Of course, it's looking up. That's what we want to be doing. We want to be looking up, looking at the teams that we can catch. So currently, like I said, 18th on 21 points is Burnley. 17th on 22 points is Everton. 16th on 23 points is Leeds United. 15th on 24 points is Brentford. And then comes Newcastle on 25 points in 14th. And above that is Villa and Leicester on 30 points respectively. We could have kind of dragged Leicester into a bit of a dogfight if we'd have got a win on Tuesday. I don't think they'd have been in any danger of actually going down, but they'd have been looking over the shoulders, put it that way. They'd have definitely been looking over the shoulders, but it wasn't to be. We would have been on 24 points and they'd have been on 27. So, yeah, they would have been in it, let's be fair. But, yeah, like I said, I feel like we got what we deserved. But it's not the end of the world. We still have, like I said, we've played 25 games. Brentford, they've played 27. We still have 2 games in hand on Brentford with only 3 points behind them, and we've still got to go. We've still got to go to Brentford, the Brentford Community Stadium, is it called? We've still got to go. If you are going, I'll see you there. We've got tickets. Johnny Tate, he's been on the show before, on the watch-alongs back in the day. And he's been on a few other full-time shows recently as well. So if you are a regular viewer and listener, you will know Johnny Tate. So if you see us, give us a shout. We'll be there. I'll probably be doing a vlog as well. Although I said I'd do a vlog for the Leicester game and I couldn't be asked, to be fair. But it's an away day, so it's going to be a different sort of vibe. So yeah, I'll definitely probably will do a vlog from 99.9% that I'll do a vlog from Brentford. And to be fair, they do quite well on the channel. So I probably should have done one for the Leicester game, but in the end, with the performance and the result, I'm kind of glad that I didn't, to be fair. So it is what it is. But yeah, we're certainly still looking up. Yeah, I was disappointed after the Leicester game. I may have said some things. I can never remember, to be fair, what I say on the full-time show straight after the game. I may have said some things like, we are still maybe going down. I don't know. You know what? I'm 50-50 at the minute. I really am. After the Spurs win and the Palace point, I was leaning more towards getting out of it. But I think it's fair to say it all depends on which Burnley turns up for the rest of the season. Because if you look at the Burnley in the first half of the season compared to the second half of the season, apart from the Leicester game, it was such a contrast. The first half of the season, definitely going down. The second half of the season, more than likely staying up. If anything, I was thinking that we could probably catch Newcastle and have a bit of battle for them, like who can finish 14th more than getting relegated before the Leicester game. But then the Leicester game was more like the first half of the season. Yes, as I've said, the lads played a lot of games in a short space of time. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt for that. But again, like, is it going to be a similar sort of thing this weekend? We've only had 4 or 5 days off, and then we've got to play one of the best teams at according to the FIFA competitions, they are the best team in the world. Obviously, they are not, because they're not even the best team in the league this country, in the league this season or even last season. But obviously, they've just won the FIFA World Cup, so the FIFA World Club Cup, sorry. So they are technically the best team in the world, but they also technically aren't. So yeah, it's going to be a tough game. They've got some very good players. We're going to have to be on top of our game. But those of you, again, who watch the show and listen to the podcast regularly will know that, of course, I work in sort of like sports broadcasting. And it was my job at the weekend, not at the weekend, during the midweek, to broadcast the Luton game, Luton-Chelsea, to a few different countries. So I watched that with intent, because obviously Burnley were playing Chelsea this weekend, and they weren't all that. They were susceptible at the back. Luton exposed. They tried to play a high line, and they got found out. I think Luton scored 2. It finished 3-2 to Chelsea, didn't it? So Luton scored twice. One of them was from a set piece. Burnley had so much joy with set pieces against Spurs. Not so much against Leicester, admittedly, but so much joy with set pieces against Spurs. So if we can recreate that against Chelsea, then we might be able to get a goal or two. And they also they tried to play a high line for the second goal, and it was exposed by, so I can't remember who he was called, but a Luton forward with a bit of pace. We don't necessarily have that, to be fair. But, I suppose there's a couple of players that might fancy the chances. There was a point when Weghorst went through against Leicester, and it was the first time we'd ever seen whether or not he had pace, and I think it's fair to say that he didn't. He ended up even turning back because he knew he was going to get caught. So he turned back and then lost possession. Maybe Dwight and Lennon might be able to expose a high line if they do play a high line against us. But the takeaway for me was they look susceptible to set pieces. So if that is the case, then I believe that we might be able to do that and hopefully score a goal from a couple of set pieces. But they did look poor against Luton for me. So I am quietly confident that we'll get a goal. But I think it's one of them. It's going to be very, very difficult. They are a very, very good side. So I know it's only a groundbreaking sort of thing that I'm going to say, but I would rip your hand off for a draw. I really, really would. They're a decent side of Chelsea. So, yeah, I'd definitely rip your hand off for a draw. But yeah, there's a lot of obviously action in the Premier League this weekend. Some games that we will be looking at, and what I'm going to do, if you're watching on YouTube, I am again going to bring it onto your screen so you can see the fixtures in the Premier League this weekend, and I will read them out to you. We'll talk about them, and you can sort of like agree, disagree, or whatever. But obviously, the main one for me, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it now. If you're not watching on YouTube and you want to get involved in all this, again, just head over to youtube.com and just search Turfcast. You'll find it. But yeah, the main one for me is Leeds and Leicester. Well, I thought it was at Leeds. According to this, it's at Leicester. So it's Leicester Leeds. Leicester, you've beaten us on Tuesday. Do us a favour and beat Leeds. So that one is going to be kicking off at 12:30 as well. So we will know the fate of that game by the time we take on Chelsea. We need Leeds to lose that one, let's be fair. Again, as we've already looked at the Premier League table before, even though Leeds are below Brentford, I still feel like Brentford are the team that we should be looking at to catch. I do feel like Leeds will be okay, mainly because they've got Phillips and Bamford to come back, and who's it at the back? Liam Cooper. So I do think they'll be all right. Even if they get rid of, they have got rid of Bielsa, but even sort of like getting rid of Bielsa, who has been the best thing to happen to them since Don Revie. I do still think that they will be just about okay, just because they've just got better players than us. Let's be fair, the spine is better, especially the midfield. I think our defense is better. Said that, Weghorst probably definitely is better than Bamford, but that midfield, Calvin Phillips in the middle, how much better would we look with Calvin Phillips in the middle? But yeah, they've got some big players to come back. Their entire spine. So because of that, I think that they will be okay. So it's Leicester Leeds kicking off at 12:30. Then you've got Villa Southampton at 3 o'clock. That's not really relevant to us. Of course, Burnley Chelsea also at 3 o'clock. Newcastle Brighton. I'm not overly worried about that with Newcastle anymore. They could win for me. I'm not bothered. I would obviously prefer a Brighton win, but their form has dropped off a cliff, mainly thanks to a 3-0 thrashing at home to the Clarets. But their form really has fallen off a cliff. So I'll even be putting Newcastle on my Super Six and my Hackers, to be honest, because I think if you look at the form of the two sides, Newcastle are probably going to win that one. And then that would take Newcastle potentially, oh no, not potentially, because they've got 5 points left, but within touching distance of Villa and Leicester. And not so long ago, Steven Gerrard was the best thing since sliced bread, but their form's also fallen off a bit of a cliff. And you would think that they might get beat at home against Southampton this weekend. That's an interesting one, because Southampton are doing well. They've just got through to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, so that one will be interesting. But yeah, Norwich Brentford. I did not realise them two played each other. Right, no, I take it back. Leeds Leicester isn't the big one. Norwich Brentford is, because that's two teams down there with us. What do we want out of that one then? You know what? I'd take a Norwich win and I'd take a draw. I don't want Brentford to win it. Brentford, for me, they could not win again between now and the end of the season, and it's looking like that might be the case. I'd be a little bit disappointed if Norwich won, but I would rather Norwich win than Brentford win. So obviously, I'm saying here draw. Some Clarets will say, no, let Norwich win. We're not bothered about Norwich anymore. We're only bothered about Brentford. But for me, yeah, Norwich draw. Elsewhere in the Premier League, Wolves against Palace. Irrelevant. I'm not asked about that. Liverpool, West Ham. Up the West Ham. Can't have Liverpool winning the league again. Then we've got Watford, Arsenal on Sunday. Man City, Man United. I'm working on Sunday. I'll be able to watch it at work. Hopefully I'm doing that game. Probably not. It's a big game. They won't give me the big games. And then on Monday, Tottenham, Everton. Come on, you Spurs. Everton, though. Let's talk about Everton. Don't really think... I don't know if the Everton fan Owen still listens to the podcast. If you are listening, Owen, drop us a DM at this point. And it's basically a test to see if Owen's still listening. But I don't think they'll go down. But Owen, I still follow him on Twitter, and he is very worried, as you would be, as we are, about relegation, the threat of relegation for Everton. Simply because he says all the signs are pointing towards relegation, but I think their home form will get them out of it. Their home form is decent. And they was unlucky against Man City at home. Obviously, if it wasn't for the ridiculous refereeing performance, they would have probably got a point out of that. Of course, you don't win, you don't always score all your penalties, but it's what is it, 9 penalties out of 10 are scored, or you get 0.9 xg from a penalty. So you would have expected them to score it, as you do with most penalties. So they were unlucky there. And I think before that, who did they play at home before that? I can't remember, but they absolutely murdered them. So I think their home form will get them out of it. I think, again, they've just got better players. Obviously, they've got Donny van der Beek, Dele Alli, and then obviously Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. they've just got some good players, and I think ultimately the quality will drag them away from the drop. So Everton, yeah, obviously I want them to get beat on Monday because Spurs are miles in front of us, but I won't be losing too much sleep if Everton win. It's if Brentford win. If Brentford and Leeds get points and win games, then that's where I'm going to start getting worried. Because let's face it, the chances of us getting 3 points against Chelsea are slim to none. I know I've been criticised recently for being negative on the podcast, and I've just said that. However, last time out, I predicted a Burnley win, and we got beat. So I'm sure you're all probably excited to see me not overly confident ahead of this weekend. But let's talk about Chelsea, because obviously I touched on them briefly and their troubles against who are they called, Luton. But there's a lot of things going off the pitch at the minute for Chelsea. So who knows, that could be affecting them. Of course, Roman Abramovich has been kind of not forced like legally, but he's been put under pressure to sell Chelsea. He was put under pressure by an MP in Commons to sell Chelsea due to his links to Vladimir Putin, and we all know what's going on with Putin in Ukraine at the minute. So he has been kind of forced to sell the club. So there's a lot of stuff going on with Chelsea. So who knows, that really could help us out a little bit. And it's one of them things that could sort of like affect the players, affect them, their thinking, and things like that. So fingers crossed. But let's look at Chelsea. I think it's one of them where they've got things happening off the pitch. They look susceptible, or they did look susceptible against Luton to conceding goals. I mean, it's one of them. Do you look too much into that because it's an FA Cup game, or do you just concentrate on their league form? For me, I think you've got to look into it because they played quite a strong side. I can't remember off the top of my head how many changes they made, but it's just one of them. I feel like they are susceptible to conceding goals, and we have a lot of things going on off the pitch. The players might not be 100% focused. I saw a bit of a meltdown in a Tuchel press conference recently before the game against Luton. I was being asked questions about the Abramovich thing, and he just sort of like blew his top and said, "Look, you need to stop asking me these questions. I'm not a politician. Obviously, I've seen everything in the news. It's horrible. I'm sick of seeing these sort of tragic events happening, but we have to concentrate on the football. I'm here as a football manager, nothing else." So he's feeling the pressure in the sense of not pressure that he's obviously going to get sacked, but the pressure in that a lot of these things are being spoken about and he's being asked about them. And if we play it like we did against Spurs, because let's be honest, we played very well against Spurs. All right, Chelsea are better than Spurs. Let's get that out there right now. But we will stand a chance. We will stand a chance. They were poor against Luton with set pieces. Luton scored a set piece. It was a near post header. Ours do tend to be more back post. But yeah, they've looked like they can be exposed on set pieces. So fingers crossed we can exploit them on that. But it's time for my prediction. Let me know in the comments below what you think your prediction is. Obviously, I've got nobody else to sort of ask their prediction. So if you can help me out by giving your predictions in the comments below, that would be fantastic. But yeah, you'll be glad to know after predicting a win against Leicester, which wasn't a win, I'm going to go back to my roots and be a pessimist. I'm going 2-1 Chelsea. I just think they're too good. They're third in the Premier League for a reason. They are playing a relegation threatened side. They'll be looking at this and thinking, yeah, 3 points. So who knows? That, again, could work in our favour. They could be complacent. It all depends on which Burnley turn up. If the same Burnley that turns up like they did against Leicester, where they're lethargic, because, they've not had much of a rest, they might still be knackered. Then, we could be in for a long afternoon. But if the same Burnley turns up that turned up against Tottenham, then we are going to be, have a decent chance. So fingers crossed we can play like we did against Tottenham. One thing I would say is that we need Sean Dyche to sort of go back to the team that he played against Tottenham. Obviously, I understand why he changed it up a bit against Leicester because of, I've mentioned, so many games in such a short space of time. But let's get back to Cork and Brown in the middle. Let's get back to Jay Rodriguez up top. I love Maxwell Cornet, and I do feel silly sometimes criticising him like I did on the full-time show. And I retweeted a couple of tweets where people were saying that he's just not been the same since AFCON, but he hasn't. He hasn't been the same since AFCON, whether it's a fitness thing, whether it's an injury. It's not really relevant. The fact is he hasn't been good enough. He hasn't shown the same levels that he did earlier in the season. And you know what? I think it would work in our favour if we had Jay Rodriguez up top alongside Wout Weghorst. And then we had Lennon and McNeil, because you can't drop Lennon. He's been class. He's been the only player that's just been pretty much a consistent since he came into the side. If you had Lennon and McNeil on the wings and then Corky and Brown in the middle, I think that is a good front six that can expose teams and work hard against teams and really help out in creating chances. And then 20 minutes left, we're still in the game. It's 1-0 to Chelsea or 0-0 or 1-1. You bring Maxwell Cornet on, and then he can come off the bench and hopefully run at some teams and cause some problems. Because let's face it, we don't have anybody else really to come off the bench and do that, do we? So yeah, I'm hoping for a tight game. I'm hoping for obviously a Claret's win. But it's going to be a tough one. One more thing I want to mention. Well, two more things actually. First of all, on Saturday, the day of the game, it is my little boy's 4th birthday. Happy birthday, Parker, if you're watching this in a few years. So that means there won't be a full-time show because the party starts at 5:30. So it's going to be a case of, the very quick turnaround. So I won't have a chance to sit down, do a match, a 45, 60-minute full-time show, edit it, get it out as a podcast. So me and Sam have spoken very briefly about it. And the chances are it's going to be on Monday. It's going to be Monday around 6 o'clock. So keep your eyes peeled on our socials. We will put more information out about that as and when we have it. And secondly, I want to mention, of course, Radio 1 DJ, Jordan North, Burnley fan, is of course doing the what's it called? Rowing home. He's raising money for Comic Relief. He's rowing home. He's rowing from London to Burnley. Having said that, I think he's just sort of rowing to an area and then having a rest. He's obviously not doing it consistently like through the night because that'd just be ridiculous. He's not a machine. But yeah, he was at. I'm going to be on level with you here, guys. I actually messed up quite a bit yesterday. I was contacted. This is not what I'm telling you. This is not what I'm talking about this for. But I was contacted by some of the PR people from the Duncan Walsh Hotel because that's where Jordan was staying yesterday. So they messaged me and they said, look, we've got Jordan North here. He is going to land here around 6 o'clock. And he is doing his rowing home for Comic Relief. So if you want to come here, you can meet him, you can interview him for your podcast. And I was like, yeah, buzzing. So I've seen the message, and obviously I know in my head that Jordan gets back in Burnley on Friday. So then I scanned all the message and like, buzzing, Jordan North, can meet him and get him on the podcast. So I was like, well, he gets home on Friday. So I'm sure it'll be Friday when they're on about. I didn't read the message properly. He stayed at the Duncan Walsh on Thursday night, and then he's doing the final journey of his leg from the Duncan Walsh to Finsley Gate. I think somewhere like that, or probably a little bit further. There's that new thing just at the top of Parliament Street in there. I think that's where he's doing it actually. So in my head, I was like, it'll be Friday. So I says, yeah, I'll do it. And I get a message on Thursday saying like, when are you coming? And I said, I'll get there around, just in time for him arriving, still thinking they were talking about Friday. And then I'll just sort of like need to speak to you about the way the interview will work, all that sort of thing. And they were like, well, it's going to be here in 5. And I'm like, what do they mean 5? So I checked the message back properly and I hadn't read it properly. It got there yesterday, so I completely missed the chance to interview him. So what I'm going to do instead, because I was going to obviously get him on the podcast and try and promote what he was doing. So what I'm going to do instead is just talk about what he's doing and try and get people to donate that way. The link will be in the description if you want to donate. Again, let me just quickly share the screen so you can see it on the stream if you're watching on YouTube. There you go. You can see it. Jordan North tells GMB's Kate Garraway he cannot wait to finish a Comic Relief 100-mile rowing challenge. So he's rowed 100 miles. So that is pretty impressive. I'm buzzing with 1,000 meters on the rowing machine when I go to the gym. So let's be fair. But yeah, just to sort of like, I'm not really obviously highlighting the fact that he said he's knackered. I'm just sort of like highlighting the fact of what he's doing. So yeah, he is obviously a huge Burnley fan. And this website winds me up. Constant, what they call pop-ups and stuff. So I'll tell you what, we'll come off that. But yeah, just sort of like highlighting the fact of what he's doing. I'm sure most of you are aware of it. Some of you might not be, I don't know if you've been living under a rock if you weren't, but some of you might not be. But yeah, he is doing a Comic Relief thing, rowing from London to Burnley, or 100 miles between London and Burnley, and then arriving in Burnley on the final day, which by the time most of you listen to this, he will have arrived, he will have finished. But you can still donate. I will put the link in the comments below. I think it's something like comicrelief.co.uk/Jordan North. Don't quote me on that. Just go to YouTube and look in the comments below. Or if you're watching on the podcast, just go on Jordan North's Twitter. It'll be on there as well. We've donated, not a lot. Obviously, I can't really spare too much at this time of year. It's my little boy's birthday. But, every little helps. So even if you've only got a £5, I think that'd help loads. So, yeah, please do that. But yeah, I just thought I'd give that one a quick shout and tell you all about the embarrassing moment I had yesterday when I completely messed up and could have easily had him on the podcast, but fucked it in typical Joe fashion. But thanks for watching. Apologies, it was just me this week. Hopefully for the next game there'll be an opposition fan on, but I'll get on that one earlier, I think, because I think I started asking on Wednesday. You know, it's more than enough time for me. People normally message me the day before. I'm not doing it. So yeah, we'll get on the opposition for the next one ASAP. But thanks for watching, and I will be doing a 60-second review after the match because that takes 60 seconds. So I will be doing the 60-second review after the match. But I won't be doing a full-time show until Monday, and there won't be a vlog for the Chelsea game, but there will be one for the Brentford game. So keep your eyes peeled on the show, on the channel for more shows. And yeah, definitely, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. If you haven't hit the notification bell yet, please do. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.